What's up? Nick Pulmanakos here, back again with yet another astounding video essay. And before we start, you already know what I'm about to do. I'm going to start this video off with a question. Have you ever found yourself watching a movie and thinking, oh my god, is this real? Like, a movie that maybe isn't the greatest film of all time, but you just can't believe it exists, and that's an achievement on its own. One that makes you feel every emotion known to man and probably a few other emotions that haven't even been discovered yet, because that's how I felt watching Spider-Man No Way Home.
God, this is so cool.
Right, so it's obviously not an unpopular opinion to say that I absolutely adored Spider-Man No Way Home. From the performances, to the music, to the writing, to even the directing, everything about this movie worked for me. I knew that after seeing this movie like, I don't know, a dozen or so times, I definitely wanted to make a video about it, discussing the aspects that I love the most. And while yes, I will be discussing the movie as a whole here, the thing that I found the most fascinating about this movie is how at its core, it's actually a small story about what truly defines this version of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. No Way Home is a story of Spider-Man becoming the hero we know and love, and so for today's video, as the title says, we're going to be discussing how No Way Home perfectly characterizes this incarnation of the webhead. So, without further ado, make sure you hit that like button, as you know, smash that subscribe button, and let's dive headfirst into Spider-Man No Way Home. But before we dive deep into the awesomeness that is Spider-Man No Way Home, we should probably briefly outline how the comics showcase the amazing, ultimate, spectacular, frankly any word you use here is fine, aspects that make up Peter Parker. Now, obviously everyone views Spider-Man a little differently, so for this brief section of the video, let me preface this by saying that this is how I view Spider-Man, and this is what I think makes him a hero. Spider-Man is someone who never gives up. As cliche as it sounds, the greatest power that Spidey and Peter possess is that even when the odds are stacked against him, he'll keep going, keep fighting, and keep believing in a better tomorrow. Time and time again, Spider-Man has been in the most dire circumstances, yet never fails at finding the will to push back against those who wish to do harm to others. Above all else, Spider-Man will always try to do the right thing, and that's just so damn inspiring. He's fearless, courageous, and will always do whatever it takes to protect the innocent. That's who Spider-Man is to me, and that's exactly the character that I saw in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Wait, you don't mean... No, man, this isn't my problem.
Peter, not your problem?
Me.
At 59 minutes and 40 seconds into this film, following an insanely well-choreographed fight with Doctor Strange, Spider-Man locks Strange in the mirror dimension and speaks probably my favorite line in the whole film.
I'm sorry, sir, but... I have to try.
He doesn't know if this stupidly crazy plan he's thinking of on the fly is gonna work, which I will get into soon, but he has to try. I love this line so much because that's exactly who Spider-Man is. Someone who tries, someone who doesn't know if plan A, B, or C is going to be successful, but he's got to try or else the fight is lost, the city will be in ruins, or his loved ones will perish. The reason why this movie works so well is because even though it's a massive story spanning at least 3, maybe 4 different universes, including multiple returning characters from different franchises, and is still another cog in the ever-growing MCU machine, this movie never loses sight of the fact that at its core is this one scared, angry guy who continues to lose everything in his life. No Way Home's greatest strength is that its plot always centers around Peter. Everything is in service of the MCU's Peter Parker. His friends losing out on college because of his actions, the villains crossing over into this universe because Peter became selfish, Aunt May's death, the other Peters appearing and helping the main Peter on this journey to save the day. Everything is done in service of Peter's arc. And because of that, this film is able to explore what makes Peter, Peter, and in turn, what makes Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Just know that I really did try to help you. I mean, I could have killed you. At any given moment, but I didn't. Because my Aunt May taught me that everyone deserves a second chance.
Throughout this film, Peter simply wishes to undo Mysterio exposing his identity to the world. After realizing that he can't do it alone, he goes to Doctor Strange, who conjures up a spell that will wipe everyone's mind so that no one remembers that Peter is Spider-Man. But Peter meddles with the spell, as he doesn't want those close to him to forget. What follows is a botched spell that would have saved the day, but several villains from the Sam Raimi and Mark Webb Spider-Man films show up, causing new levels of havoc. They're here because the spell now pulled in those from the multiverse who know Peter's identity, and from there, 3 different Spider-Man franchises converge into one story. I love that while Strange is the one casting the spell, it's Peter who causes the magic to go haywire. Peter is someone who has always struggled with his identity, especially in the MCU, trying to live 2 lives at once. He constantly agonizes over the choices he makes, never knowing if he's doing the right thing. Here, all of that is brought to the forefront of Holland's incarnation of the character, as he struggles with the idea of having to hide from those closest to him again, trying to bend the spell to his will. Of course, it doesn't, leading to a multiversal Sinister 5, it should have probably been 6, but whatever, I'm guessing we're gonna get that soon enough, showing up to wreak havoc on the MCU. Again, I should say that it would have been easy to just have these characters show up and make the audience cheer and then have them leave, but that's not what John Watts and Marvel wanted. Octavius, Osborn, Dylan, Marco, and Connors, the main and most popular villains from their respective franchises, are here to enhance what our idea of Holland's Spider-Man is. You see, Peter just doesn't want to fight these villains or send them back to their respective universes, at least initially. He realizes that several of them die in their fights against Spider-Man, and he would rather help them than send them to their deaths. Seriously, does it get more Spider-Man than that? This dude literally locks Strange away in the mirror dimension so that he can help cure these people and try to save them. That's Spider-Man, the idealist who tries to see the good in everyone, the man who, no matter the odds, fights the good fight. The sequence in Happy Hogan's apartment where Holland's Peter works with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin to cure Otto Octavius is nothing short of incredible, as we get more of Peter's brilliant mind and Osborn showing how much good he could do if not for that pesky goblin personality living inside of him. Which reminds me...
That's some neat trick. That sense of yours. Norman?
Yeah, just gotta interject here to say that Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is undoubtedly one of the greatest villains in Marvel movie history, and just movie history in general. Dafoe is an absolute madman as an actor, and the way he's able to make you empathize with Norman, the man, but also make you tremble in fear as soon as the Goblin appears is just so damn good that I really needed to get all of that out before I continue with this video any further. Now, back to the essay. Where was I? Oh yeah, right. Right, so Aunt May dies in this film, and yeah, screw it, whatever, I really did shed a tear. Not afraid to say that. Didn't think I'd ever cry for Marissa Tomei's Aunt May, but here we are. After curing Otto Octavius, Osborn is revealed to have been taken over by the Goblin again, leading to one of the most brutal and visceral fights to ever happen in the MCU. As Goblin has Spider-Man on the ropes, he unleashes the glider, which clips Aunt May in the side before tossing a pumpkin bomb behind him as he escapes. Surprisingly though, May initially begins to walk this off, leading to another moment in the MCU's true defining of this Peter Parker. Peter helps May up and laments about how it's impossible to save everyone and how everything that's transpired is his fault. And damn man, what a moment! The idealistic Peter faced with the most dire consequences imaginable, and he's pretty much powerless to stop it. Of course he'd be mad. He saw the good in these guys, and 4 out of 5 of them just leveled a building, beat him to a bloody pulp, and caused the death of his last living family member. May's death is genuinely one of the saddest and most heartbreaking moments in the MCU, but her character being the one to deliver the great power line is something I actually really like. In the MCU, May has always been a lifeline for Peter, someone he can go to when the walls are closing in, and now she's gone, taken from Peter by the Goblin. But with her fleeting breaths, she reminds Peter that he still made the right decision, even if it did blow up in his face. That even though Peter believes none of this is his responsibility, it is, because that's who Spider-Man is. He's the guy who uses his gifts to better the world, to better others, and to better himself. And even when the world comes crashing down, and it does, multiple times in fact for this dude, he needs to keep going, to keep fighting. Giacchino's score here is hauntingly beautiful as Peter apologizes repeatedly. This is Peter Parker at his lowest point, and you can bet I ate all that up because hell yeah, man, miserable Peter Parker is back.
I thrive off negativity. Anything negative, I'm for it.
Okay, yeah, I know it's weird to cheer something like that, and I'm not cheering the literal idea of May dying, more so I'm cheering the aspect of Spider-Man where he continuously loses and feels the weight of the world on his shoulders. One of this story's biggest strengths is the fact that Peter himself is the cause of his problems. His war with Mysterio led to his identity being exposed. Him wanting for certain people to still know his identity led to Strange screwing up the spell and breaking the multiverse. And now, him wanting to help these villains led to his aunt dying in his arms. He has to live with the fact that he's the one who's brought pain and suffering to his family and friends, and holy man, this got dark for a franchise that has stuff like this.
Okay, Spider-Man, don't flip!
But it's really, really great because it's another step in Peter understanding what it truly means to be Spider-Man. Unsurprisingly, at his lowest point, Peter doesn't care about what happens to these villains anymore. While we hear him literally say this later on, his facial expression during this scene here says enough. I like that this film spends time on Peter reeling from the damage done before moving on towards what fans have been begging to see from this film. That's right, folks. It's finally time that we discuss the big returns of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
She told me that with great power
Comes great responsibility.
At the top of No Way Home's third act, Ned, who is somehow magical now, opens up a mystical portal trying to find Peter Parker. Unfortunately, he's unable to find his Peter, but what he does find is not one, but two alternate versions of Peter, played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Now let's just get this out of the way now and say, yeah, I totally flipped out in the theater. I knew they were gonna be in the movie. I've probably known since October 2020, and I still cheered. Loudly. Like, I mean this loud. It was better than any team-up in Infinity War and Endgame, and frankly better than any team-up moment in the MCU or superhero movies. And maybe it's just because I've grown up with literally all three of these versions of Spider-Man, but I don't care, man. This was awesome! Maguire and Garfield's respective Peters being in the movie was, simply put, magical. Genuinely, the film would have still worked if neither actor appeared. That's how great this script is. But them being in the film is the literal definition of icing on the cake, and once they arrive, they become co-leads with Holland's Peter and offer him some much-needed guidance and clarity. They've been through what Holland's Peter is going through. My biggest worry with this film was that they'd ruin these other versions of Peter, but thankfully, both characters are written with nuance and earnestness. Maguire's Peter, having gone through the hardest battles of his life, acts as the Spider-Man that found balance in his life and demonstrates that it is possible to move through the darkness and reach the light at the end of the tunnel. Garfield's Peter, which as you all know is my personal favorite, is afraid of what that darkness could do to someone, as he himself became lost in it after losing the love of his life, Gwen Stacy. He acts as the Spider-Man who longs for redemption, not wanting Holland's Peter to lose himself in anger and hate. Both are here to remind Peter that even in a position as low as his, he still needs to have hope for that brighter tomorrow and to never lose sight of his moral mission. Again, these characters are not just here to make you smile. They're here because Holland's Peter needs someone or someones who understand his pain and struggle. These other Peters are here to bring Holland's Peter back on the right path and ensure he completes his mission of curing those who need his help. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into the final battle, as its greatness pretty much speaks for itself. The thing I do want to discuss, however, is the battle that Holland's Peter is fighting, the one he's fighting against himself. After curing Electro, Lizard, and Sandman, Green Goblin finally reappears and attacks our group of heroes. Holland's Peter and Goblin land on the destroyed shield of the Statue of Liberty and engage in one last fight. The music here is not heroic, it's foreboding, because we know that all Peter wants to do is kill Norman. As much as he's fought off the urge to do it, or tried to understand Toby's Peter's reasoning for not killing, none of that matters here. He's going to kill Norman if it's the last thing he does, and he comes dangerously close to succeeding. That is, until Toby's Peter steps in and stops Holland's Peter from committing an unthinkable act. It's fitting that Toby's Peter is the one to knock some sense into Holland's Peter because, like I said, Toby's Peter has been through this before. He's been at a low point and had to remember Uncle Ben's words and remember their moral mission.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Holland's Peter could have easily killed Norman, but that's not what Aunt May would have wanted of him. He sees the line that can't be crossed and becomes the hero he was destined to be, curing Norman and ending his madness. For a split second, you think all is well, until the camera pans up and reveals that the multiverse is on the brink of collapsing, and there's only one thing that can stop it.
What if everyone forgot who I was?
What?
They're coming here because of me, right? Because I'm Peter Parker? So cast a new spell. But this time make everyone forget who Peter Parker is. Make everyone forget.
And this moment right here, this is the one above all else that truly captures the essence of Peter Parker as a character, hero, and human. Strange says that the villains are coming through because of Peter's exposed identity, so Peter asks him to make the world forget that he even existed, which will restore order to the multiverse. Every moment, every fight, every sacrifice has led to this moment. Peter is willing to give up everything if it means saving the world. MJ and Ned will forget him, the Avengers will forget him, and he'll have no one in his life to lean on. But he knows that this massive sacrifice will not be done in vain, as his friends, family, and those scattered across the Spider-Verse or multiverse, whatever you want to call it, will be safe. It's the ultimate act of selflessness, and one that truly reflects on who Spider-Man is. No matter the stakes, the severity of the situation, or the impact on his life, Spider-Man will always make the right decision, even if it majorly impacts the life of Peter Parker. Peter swings off and Strange casts the spell, and the world forgets that Peter Parker ever existed.
Is there anything else?
Whether this movie was the plan or not, I absolutely love that this is where Holland's Spider-Man is left at right now. This movie forced him to agonize over his decisions, always questioning whether what he's doing is even right. We as the audience know what a hero would do, but having Peter be put through the ringer essentially forced the character to finally embrace who he was meant to be. Holland's Spider-Man was always a hero, but this is the movie where he finally becomes Spider-Man. And yeah, I know there are moments in the other two films that have this same feeling, but No Way Home, for as big as it is, felt like the smallest and most personal story for Holland's Peter yet. Peter has always been someone who struggles with the decisions he makes. All he wants to do is make the people around him happy and not let his Spider-Man activities impact his normal life. On the flip side, all Spider-Man wants to do is be the hero everyone expects him to be. When those two things clash, yeah, it's never good. This film placed insurmountable odds against Peter, and yet he holds on to his morals. Like I said, the opportunity was there to kill Goblin, but he didn't. The opportunity was there to kill all of these villains, but he didn't. because that's not who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is the one who never gives in, never surrenders, even in the face of fear. He holds on to that hope for a better tomorrow. Everything about Peter Parker's characterization in this film was inspiring, and I can't wait to see where they take this character next. Hello, astonishing YouTube community. Thanks so much for checking out my video on Spider-Man No Way Home. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at NickManakos, and I've been Nick Pilmanakos, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later, guys.